Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Eye on Icon. And as always, Eye on Icon is powered by Icon Plus. And my co-host, Iconographer, how are you going?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm great. Another day, another dollar, I'd like to say. Although just before we started record, a massive dump started in the market. Oh, what a great way to kick off the news day.
Well, it's just every time we get close to going above back above $2 again, it's either Bitcoin decides to take a dump, or some FUD gets pushed out, or Bitcoin decides to take a dump again, or something else. So hopefully, maybe by the time folks are listening to this, that we've surpassed that $2 mark and are off and running. Because my sense, and kind of talking to some other folks in the community, is that once we kind of breach that and clear all that out, and all those sellers get taken out, we'll hopefully make a nice little run. But we'll see.
Yes, cannot wait for that. So, as we continue to play with our show format, today we are coming to you with strictly the news. There's plenty of news to talk about, so we thought we'd just really focus on that and give our views on and our takes on everything that's happening with the Icon ecosystem. So, first off, we had Icon. Who did we have run a recent AMA iconographer? Who?
It was Icon Penis held a AMA with Scott Smiley and Ricky Dodds, both of them well known within the Icon ecosystem, I guess you could say. Scott Smiley is with ICX Station, and Ricky Dodds is, I believe, head of strategy and marketing. I think that's his title with the Icon Foundation itself. So they're obviously, other than maybe Min, probably as tied into Icon as more tied into Icon than anyone else. So it was really nice that they were able to spend some time doing an AMA with the community on Telegram.
Yes, and you may think, oh, but they were the last few podcasts they've done an AMA here, there. The Scott was on a podcast with us, and you are right. However, the great thing about getting them on over and over again, you can keep asking them variations to certain questions, and eventually they just keep letting out a little bit more news about that topic, or time has passed where they can kind of start talking about it a lot more. So we wanted to talk through some of the topics, the questions. Some great questions were asked in that AMA, and some great answers were delivered. So one of the first ones was BTP. Again, there was focus on BTP by Scott, and he made mention, and I really like this, that he wanted to have his personal goal was to have Icon connected to more blockchains than any other in the industry by the end of 2021. That's quite a statement there, isn't it, Icongrapher?
Yeah, I think Scott recognizes there's danger in overpromising and under-delivering. So I don't think he would say that, just to kind of create hype and not feel like he could follow up on something like that. So even if that is accomplished, but if we're still close, and if we're, that's still well in advance of where we're at today, because the technology isn't quite done yet. But one of the things he also mentioned too is, we obviously focus on the tech side of things, of the number of new features and opportunities that BTP will provide by creating that true interoperability between other chains. But he had kind of mentioned that there's this aspect of it it creates a community of communities, which, in a certain way, I kind of harken back to Sesame Seed, which is kind of another example of this for those who have followed that project and its integration with Icon. But basically, all of a sudden, Sesame Seed added Icon to its staking model, and everyone who held Seed, which now, if you hold Seed, you get a slice of Icon, you can redeem it. They all of a sudden, overnight became essentially ICX bag holders. So they, without even purchasing it or anything like that, they got brought into the community. Now, there's a handful of people who are from Sesame Seed that I'll chat with here and there, and they'll ask questions about Icon. And when the Icon price was surging the other day, everyone was really excited. So take that model and replicate it across many other chains, who now all of a sudden they'll wake up and say, oh wow, now all of a sudden we can move our tokens from X chain to Icon. All of a sudden they're going to start getting a little more interested in our project, and they, to a certain extent, become stakeholders in it, because now they have really good access to the various applications and products and tokens and everything else that we have going on. So it really can replicate the size of our community very quickly over time. Obviously, there's going to be that core that core base of iconists, but there's going to be almost a network of nodes to other communities that'll kind of directly and indirectly become part of the icon community as well. So I think as powerful as the force as community can be in crypto, I think that's a really important thing to think about.
Yeah, and he did really call out that there were two specific chains in mind where there have been actually actively started development for the BTP integration. So that's exciting to hear. Let's hope one of them is Ethereum. But
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see many guesses of which two they are over the next few weeks and months. I'm sure.
Yep, yep. And a couple other quick call outs he made. This is more for the dev aspect. The Java virtual machine. Apparently, it's a huge step up from the current Python based contracts. I know later on in the week we're going to have Andrew on the show talking about his dev experience for the new CPS proposal they put forward for the metrics app. Should have framed that question to him, but we'll have him back on the show and ask him what that means for the dev community. Then better economics. Okay, this is a good one. I felt it was a great question that got asked. So there was a question asked. Well, Scott actually broke down that he's keen for Icon 2.0 to come out because that will enable the real final fine tuning of the tokenomics that is for the Icon ecosystem around ICX. Because as you know, we get staking rewards and P-reps get rewards and etc. And this all this comes out of somewhere, which is block rewards and inflation. So there has been constant changes as we evolve to kind of fine tune that and land in a good place for inflation for the entire ecosystem. So there was a lot of commentary around this and how he wanted to tackle it with Icon 2.0. Did you have any thoughts around this, Iconographer?
Yeah, I think it's something that kind of there was some discussion about it when it first kind of got proposed and pushed out, but at some point there's going to be a transition to kind of how we look at inflation, and it's not going to be right now. It's kind of set in stone based on what the P rep rewards are and what the voter rewards are. Those are and soon to be the CPS rewards, but there's going to be as we move to a new tokenomic system via Icon 2.0. It'll be really, really in the hands of P reps to essentially decide how much inflation there is, and basically deciding it. And there'll be four categories that inflation will kind of, I guess you could say, fund. One of them's the P reps. One of them's the voters. One of them's the relayers who will help Icon 2.0 operate, and the other category is CPS. So there's going to be a question of, okay, how much inflation do we want going towards each of those categories, and at the same time, how much total inflation are we willing to deal with or tolerate or whatever it is. So there'll be a balance there. Obviously, if you cut P rep rewards too much, then all of a sudden, even just running a node might become too expensive. In which case, then you deprive incentive of it. At the same time, how much you have to. He kind of alluded to or explained how much do we really want to reward P reps for above and beyond voters. Voting is relatively low activity. It doesn't take a whole lot of work, but it does take some thought and diligence. Running a node obviously takes a lot more. The question is how much more value and how much more effort is that worth compensating, right? So that's one question. The other is, let's see how the CPS goes. If it really goes gangbusters and it feels like it brings a lot more to the Icon network, maybe it's worth investing a little bit more there at the cost of P rep rewards or something like that. And the same goes for the relayers. We'll get more details on exactly how those will work and what that will require, but it's not going. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think I imagine the community is going to have certain expectations and things like that. So it'll be a delicate process to figure that out. Just because I don't think voters are going to want to see their rewards cut, and I don't think anyone likes inflation, especially based on some of the debates we've had in the past. And so it'll really come down to, okay, if we want to cut inflation but we don't want to cut voter rewards, where else are we going to trim? And maybe it's decided, hey, we're willing to tolerate inflation because we think it'll help things grow over the future. That'll be, we can go in that direction too. So it'll require a lot of sharp thinking by P reps and a lot of engagement by the community. Fortunately, we have a lot of time to resolve that and figure that out. But that's something that I hope people start thinking about soon.
Yep, agree. Then one of the other points, and this was consistent in the AMA, was about how do we go onboarding more devs and teams, and essentially supporting them as well. So to this point, we saw that again they mentioned that they were in the process of onboarding a relationship lead as well from a dev perspective, to help broaden the developer resources, tutorials, and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. It, they made mention as well that obviously with Icon 2.0, that is, they're launching it and they want to ensure it's got the right support to succeed. And the part of that was they mentioned Parrot 9, the P-Rep that has been working on balance. They're in the process of improving the documentations for the devs, along with what was the last thing? Setting up hackathons and other things to attract more devs to the ecosystem. And I know this is something that I know I actually get contacted via message, random Telegram chats, people inquiring, wondering, is Icon doing something to attract more devs? So this is a great example of the right questions being asked in the AMA, and not the right answers, but it is the right answers, but actually action in the background. These things are currently happening to ensure that we do succeed with the Icon 2.0 launch.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff doesn't draw headlines like airdrop announcements or things like that, but
Mm.
there is important work going on, and it is fairly crucial over the long term as far as attracting developers. And a lot of it's just making it a bit more, I guess you could say, accessible, or easier to build on Icon. So a developer will come along and maybe they're really good at developing, but they haven't built anything on Icon. And so there's almost always going to be questions about, hey, I want to do this. How can I interact with the blockchain in this kind of way? And so just to have more bridges between them and kind of the underlying documentation and code, and everything else like that, whether that's better tutorials or a better kind of person to serve as an interface between the two, who can communicate well and be kind of a support for developers. Things like that, that's going to be, again, something that the general public and the general community isn't going to be super aware of. But if under the surface that can really get going, it's going to bring it'll create the infrastructure to bring a lot more developers on, beyond all the effort that's happened over the years too. It's not that Icon's been sleeping on this activity or anything like that. This has all been going on for a long time, but they're not getting complacent and saying, okay, we're all done. They're always working on this, and it sounds like they're certainly thinking about it as well.
Yep. Okay, so the next, and this is a big one, I think 2 days ago, seemingly out of nowhere, we had some FUD hit us. What is this? Icongraph, I'll let you really break this down. What happened?
Yeah, so there was just kind of a cryptic headline saying Icon Loop is being the subject of a tax investigation. It was a Korean article, so a lot of the community was kind of left in a bit in a fog. And of course, as soon as you see the word investigation, I'm sure the bots pick that up, and that's why partly why there was an immediate dump from somewhere closer to close to $2, down all the way to I think 180 or something like that. Nice big red candle to end our weekend on.
Mm.
But so there was whenever there's these things, there's a handful of people who immediately jump to the worst possible conclusion, and think, oh, the project's doomed, and what's this mean, and are they going to jail, and all sorts of stuff like that. And the other side, there's people who kind of brush it up as no big deal. I'm certainly in the latter camp. I did a bit of digging on it, and I'm certainly no expert on Korean tax policy and procedures, but it seems to me that through the process of having Icon Loop as a company, and then you have the Icon Foundation, there was the ICO in 2017. There was some funds moved around in order to help fund some certain initiatives, probably in order to pay Icon Loop for the development work they were doing, kind of as a contractor. And it seems to me, based on the research I've done, that there's a disagreement between what sort of information that Icon Loop should have been proactively, showing the government, saying, hey, here's how these transactions happen and everything like that. They're saying that because we're either a small or medium-sized business, we weren't under these requirements to disclose this information. So my sense is, the laws around cryptocurrency, especially in Korea, have been kind of hazy. There's been a lot of back and forth. It's on one hand, they've been very aggressive against exchanges. On the other, they've been really open about trying to integrate blockchain into their overall economy. So it's a bit murky and confusing on some fronts. But basically, my sense is that this tax entity just wants to kind of get a sense of what they want to get some information from Icon Loop just to figure out how these funds moved about and just to make sure there wasn't some way that taxes got avoided paying because of the way the payments got made or money moved around or whatever else it might be. So again, you hear words like tax evasion and things like that. My sense is that if there was any issue whatsoever, it was certainly as a result probably of vague regulations or basically an accident about the way the money got moved around or something like that. So I think worst case scenario, they find out that a certain amount of taxes should have been paid. Icon Loop will pay those taxes and things will move on. And I think that's the absolute worst that can happen. I think best case scenario is they look at it and they say, nope, everything got done above board and correctly. We can all move on. So obviously, again, investigation is kind of a scary headline, but when you really kind of dig into things and think it through, it's from my standpoint, it's really not that big of a deal at all. And it's just kind of the government doing a bit more due diligence just to make sure that there weren't any improprieties. And again, it's an emerging industry. Rules are vague and hard to interpret, and so this is all unfortunately part of that process.
Yep, and we saw right away the foundation call out that again the Icon Foundation is a separate entity. The public chain is a separate entity, and again this was taken as that's great, but and on the flip side it was, oh my god, why are they trying to call this out? This could mean that there was something bad happening, and it's not necessarily, that wasn't the intent of the announcement. In fact, they've made it quite clear, and I think you've written an article on it, Iconographer, where identifying why it was set up separately and the perks of it being set up in this way. And yes, it is technical. Icon Loop is a technical partner, but there were reasons why the public chain was created the way it has been. So it was just reinforcing that message as well. Overall, it is FUD. It's part and parcel of dealing with things that come up in the crypto space, because you're right, it's all new and regulations and things are just forming around it. So you expect this to happen during these times.
Yeah, and a bit more context. The Icon Foundation is technically set up in Switzerland. There's a town there which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically trying to make itself out to be kind of a haven for crypto companies, and so their tax regulations. Because when you think about an ICO, it's essentially someone handing you a bunch of money. Granted, it's a bunch of money to go build something, but it's someone handing you a bunch of money, which in most jurisdictions would just be seen as income and taxed. Whereas in this Swiss jurisdiction, it's a lot more lax than that, and they recognize that this is kind of how the crypto industry evolves. They'd rather capture part of that business rather than tax it into the ground. So that's why you see a lot of these foundations establish themselves there. So I think what happened is, and this is me being pretty speculative, but theoretically they say, okay, this Icon Foundation generated a bunch of money. They were able to do it under, less stringent tax laws. And then some of the money moved over to Icon Loop because, Icon Loop's the technical partner. Icon Loop is a company that builds blockchain technology. So it makes total sense that the Icon Foundation would essentially hire Icon Loop to build out their blockchain technology. I think that's exactly what did happen. And obviously in that process, they're paying Icon Loop for that service. Now, maybe Korea looks at that and says, oh, they were able to get this money without paying taxes on it, and then it went over to this entity. And so I think they just want to make sure that was all done above board and correctly, and there's, whether it's adequate documentation or whatever else they might be looking for. That's my sense of how things are potentially playing out.
Very much our speculation and based on conversations, but again, just trying to paint that picture. Yep, thanks, Iconographer, that was good. Okay, next up we have Spartan Node, a bit of news around there. So everyone knows Spartan Node, the famous meme contest that went around on Twitter. God, there were some quality memes there. In fact, Min still uses them. He did the FUD piece. I think he used one of those memes, which was great to see. But particularly today, some news around their front. So we'd brought you last time that they were kicking off the proof of momentum, which was their Ldx token. Now this token was designed essentially. It got airdropped to you, airdripped. If you were voting for them, and you had to move it around. If you didn't move it around every 48 hours, it would halve in your wallet. It was I think we talked about it. It was a cool concept, and I even made this comment. At the moment, that's what it is to get moved around. I love to see how this evolves. So what we've seen, the guys have been working away, and now they're going to be creating an NFT bazaar. So essentially a place where you can go and mint NFTs, and to mint the NFTs you will have to use this particular token, the Ldx token they've created, and then it'll be a marketplace, etc., that you can sell these NFTs. But they're starting to put a bit more of a use case around this Ldx token. Now, with that in mind, I think this bazaar is being created with the launch. There's been hints at April, perhaps. So what they've done in the interim is they've frozen the burn from happening. So at the moment, if you have Ldx in your wallet, it won't burn. It won't reduce by half every 48 hours until the marketplace launches. That way, there is the goal of the Ldx token is to be used, not to be hoarded in your wallet. So they're putting a bit of a use case around it, so that should hopefully have an impact to the token. Any thoughts around there, Iconographer?
Yeah, it's nice to see already some innovation happening. That this idea has only been around for I think a couple of months now, as far as the Spartan Node up and running, and dipping their toes in the NFT game. Obviously, we still have Craft, which has been under development for a while, which is essentially another mechanism to mint and a marketplace for selling and trading NFTs. But certainly having more than one option is never a bad thing for Iconists. So excited to see that up and running, and another just another way to grow the Icon ecosystem. And obviously it's nice to be that they're being generous with that Ldx token, and it helps them too, because they gain a lot more exposure from their overall community to their token, and obviously to their bazaar once it's up and running.
Agreed. Now, next bit, was it yesterday, Iconographer? I can't remember now. All the days merge into one. Did we have a new protocol? You may be part of it. I can't remember.
We do indeed. Hopefully, if you've already listened to that episode by now, it was Fez and Radio Friendly and myself conducting kind of a joint interview. We talked about something called the Equality Exchange, which is another DeFi protocol that is coming onto the Icon ecosystem. We're looking to launch sometime this year, probably aiming for about Q3. And what it is it is a automated market maker that specializes in trading usually stable coins, but also to basically any asset that trades against itself at a similar price, or basically a stable price. So you could have different, the other example is Wrapped BTC and Ren BTC. Both are versions of Bitcoin on the Ethereum network they trade on Curve, which is what Equality is kind of based off of. And they trade for the same price because they're supposed to represent Bitcoin. Obviously, same go for stable coins, whether you want to trade USDC for USDT. The benefits of Equality is essentially there was very, very minimal transaction fees, and very, very, very low to potentially non-existent slippage as well, meaning that you wouldn't want to go trade $1 and then get 99 cents back. 1 cent might not seem like a big deal, but if you're trying to swap $10,000 and you have to pay $100 or more for one transaction, that's obviously going to start to add up a lot. So creating a mechanism that allows that to happen is really, it'll be really helpful for Icon. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on it on this episode, because there's plenty of content out there already. Whether it was the last podcast episode, we have our Medium article up there as well, and I have added a chapter to the Icon DeFi guide, doing a deep dive into Equality and how it works, and making it really easy to, hopefully really easy to understand what exactly the project will do and how it will benefit Icon.
So we have Balanced, which is a merge between Maker and Synthetics. We have OMM, which is a money market, which is like Aave and Compound. We have Equality now coming into the picture, which is Curve, essentially, trading like-for-like assets at with minimal fees, and the other perks that we talked through in the podcast in detail. And I do want to call out the article was brilliant. So if you haven't read the article, definitely jump in. It actually deep dives on the examples a bit further. Well done, iconographer.
Thank you.
Then we have one more, Optimus. Is it Optimus Prime? That essentially will automatically move your yield, and there's more that will come out there. But what I'm trying to call out is,
I think it's just Optimus. I think Optimus Pride's a copyright violation.
oh,
So
is
it
it
just
Optimus?
that is how I remember it though. I just stop at Optimus. So.
Okay, Optimus. Forget about the Prime. Optimus. Yes. So essentially finding you the best yield for your assets. And others that I haven't mentioned yet, but you can see the picture I'm painting here. These things have been in the works, and they're all falling into place just at the right time. So, very excited over the next 6 months. Okay, equality. That's great. So the next one, I just wanted to do a bit of a shout out. A couple episodes ago, we had Edward from Staken on the Lossless Lottery, and we learnt all about everything Staken's doing, but particularly what the Lossless Lottery is a chance where you can put your ICX into a pot, and you get the reward gets drawn every week. You can either win, five to, depending on how much ICX is in that week. And the best part is, if you don't win, you can withdraw your ICX, post the staking period and keep it, or just keep going into the next future draws. So we're proud to announce Icon Plus and us here at Ion Icon are sponsoring the following week's draw, and we'll get some content out about it. We've thrown a little bit extra into the pot. So if you haven't explored it already, do listen to the podcast and jump onto the website and check it out. Yes, it was one of the first DeFi protocols I used on Ethereum, so I just love the idea of being able to, put some ICX here and have a random win, or I
Yeah,
still don't lose any money.
please take our money.
Exactly. Okay, next thing, what have we got? There's a new wallet on the horizon. Wallet X, I mean. Now, this is interesting. On Ethereum, there's this. We have, well, on every protocol, your wallet has this massive address, right? And you have to either, if you don't have your wallet on your phone, keep it somewhere. If you want to pass it on and make sure it's accurate, you pass everything on. Because if you don't, if anyone's sending you the funds, it can get lost. So what happened was, on Ethereum they created this service called ENS names. So essentially it removes the address, just like your web server. Instead of the 1.011, it's www.icon. A similar thing with your wallet address. It is now replaced with your name. And this service launched on Ethereum a while back, and we've got a similar service and a wallet that is going to be launching soon that essentially replaces that wallet address with the name you register. So you don't have to remember this long one. You can literally send me some ICX at Crypto Setups or Iconographer some ICX, or anyone for that matter. So there's a new wallet in the works. I'm quite excited about this. It should simplify the entire process. What do you think, Iconographer?
Yeah, it'll be a nice feature. And I think part of the friction of getting people on board to crypto is, they see these long wallet names, and they look, just by looking at them, they seem confusing because it's CX12H2, whatever it is, for 30 or 50 characters. And so to have something where it's just easy as, hey, yeah, in the same way you type in google.com, you can send money to iconographer dot whatever it might be. And so I kind of, it's kind of similar in a certain sense to IconFi, where it's just another tool to make it easier for the less crypto advanced users to get into crypto. I think we'll see more and more of this moving forward, of more walls coming down that are potentially preventing less tech savvy people from getting involved who may otherwise want to get involved. So certainly not a major earth shattering announcement by any means, but it's just another nice little piece of puzzle that's fallen into place.
Yep. Then we also have the Icon Asset Management PREP. Now, if you haven't already, Corey had Geodude on a podcast, one of the founders of that PREP team, talking through what they're about and how the idea came about. And I encourage anyone who wants to learn a bit about that PREP to listen to the podcast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that particular topic, but what I did want to call out is, here's a team that has set up a PREP, and we're seeing a fundamental shift on the way PREPs traditionally operated to what they're going to end up being. And in that stage, they've come up with this unique idea of essentially viewing the PREP as a fund index fund manager of sorts, and their goal is to kind of acquire various tokens in the Icon ecosystem, and distribute their token, which is IAM, that has a representation of the various products that they manage in this fund. So Geodude does a much better explanation of, breakdown of what it's about. However, I wanted to call out it is a unique take. It's something to just explore, and again, let's say I'm keen to see how these new variations will move once we do migrate to Icon 2.0. But you know what? Change is great. It inspires new ideas. We saw Spartan Node come in there. Now we've got asset management doing a variation, something a little bit different. Let's see who comes into the picture next. There are going to be similar projects at launch. I'm keen to see what happens.
Yeah, a point I've been trying to make repeatedly for a while now is that as much as there was an emphasis from the start of decentralization that the PREPs were, that the whole concept kind of around Icon was this proof of contribution idea, to where PREPs should be voted on and rewarded based on the amount of contribution they're providing to Icon, and whether that was building dApps, marketing, building infrastructure, whatever else it might have been, that voters should be rewarding that activity and not voting for those who were simply running a node. Now it came to a point where it just got determined that there was a lot of issues with that. Part of it was voter apathy. Part of it was the fact that once a PREP got into the top 10 or top 22, it was really hard for them to fall out because they earned more rewards, which they just used to self stake. And so it was a tough decision, and it wasn't an easy decision, but the community eventually rallied around this, I would say, gradual shift toward a new model that basically looks at PREPs more as node operators. Obviously, there is still some, there's an expectation of a bit more involvement than your standard iconist in contributing to Icon. But that being said, I'll still see people pop up and say, why are people voting for PREPs that aren't doing anything? Or we really need to, everyone needs to vote for contributing PREPs or whatever else it might be, which, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, I don't, it sometimes comes from a bit of a negative light. And because running a node itself is an important task, and being competent at it is really critical for the network. So I think this all kind of has evolved to where there's a lot of disappointment, and maybe not disappointment, but I guess frustration about the number of PREPs that are doing some sort of reward sharing in some way, shape, or form. Just because there was this movement against vote buying, again back at the early start of decentralization, as a violation of that proof of contribution idea. Again, as we moved away from it, there was a kind of a recognition that that if we're not basing it on contribution, then maybe allowing some sort of give back or sharing rewards would be permissible. And so we're obviously seeing more and more teams do it. I think the first one to officially do it would have been Sesame Seed. We've then seen Menonix, I think I pronounced that right, has also done it, as well as Spartan Node. Icon Bet is doing some form of reward sharing as well, and obviously the Icon Asset Management PREP. And so, to a certain extent, in some ways, some of these are a little sophisticated. Other reward programs aren't necessarily as much. But I think what's going to be interesting to see over the coming months and years, potentially, is it's going to be hard to get voted into the top unless you're providing some value beyond just the ICX staking. And to me, I see that as a plus, because as the PREP rewards have been going down, and it's getting relatively less lucrative to be a PREP now. As the ICX price goes up, it's a little bit of a different equation. But in order to give back to enough of your voters to make them want to vote for you, it'll become a lot more competitive, in the sense that anyone can just give back 50%. It's a pretty straightforward math problem. And so if everyone's doing that, then nobody's really standing out. So the question becomes, how do you innovate a bit more?
Mm.
And if you're going to create a reward sharing token or reward sharing model, you have to start getting really creative and innovative, and more importantly, in a way that creates additional value without without detracting from value. Otherwise, you have to basically create more value for the ecosystem in order to pass it along. So, I think in the context of this, with the icon asset PREP, they're going to be working on essentially, building a fund, investing into a certain extent in certain icon tokens, projects, whatever else it might be, to over time increase the value of that token, which the token itself gives you a redemption value. It's a
Yep.
part of that fund. And so I think over time, I'm optimistic, thinking that more and more heroes will pop up with more novel ideas on how, if they're just giving out, you can't just give out a token and expect it to have value. It needs to be tied to something else of value in one way, shape, or form. And so, we might start to see some pretty interesting projects pop up. Even just watching, with Spartan Node, they're obviously pivoting it a little bit because they realize that, maybe doing it this way and tying it to this NFT bazaar, doing these airdrips or airdrops. I'm not sure officially what they've determined it to be, but that itself is a sign of innovation as well, and potentially a recognition that there needs to be some evolution in order to stay competitive in this.
That,
So I look at optimistically. I know some people are still kind of disappointed that it's going in this direction, but I think the system, in order, the incentives are aligned for creating value, nonetheless. So I think it's a positive move.
yep. I couldn't agree more. And the particular PREPs now that have come in, they're adding value to the ecosystem. We still got, thanks to Sesame Seed, we got the unified protocol that launched. Spartan Node are doing with the LDX now, the NFT bazaar. Well, that's brilliant, great. We've got some tie in here. The asset management, Geodude, they've been working together. They're investing in the icon ecosystem. Tap, soon Balance, soon various other ecosystems coins will be in this portfolio. That's great, and I can't wait to see what comes next. And one other part that people may not realize is, we got DeFi launching. Once DeFi launches, a lot of ICX, rather than being staked to individual PREPs, will go through these DeFi protocols, and then the DAOs will vote for where this gets distributed and voted to. So this is what I mean. The ecosystem's constantly going to be evolving. You can try variations as long as everyone's building together. And I keep bringing home this point: we build, everyone's going to be better for it. And currently, the guys are building. Everyone's building. A lot of the PREPs as well that currently depended, unfortunately, on the old model that were building may be struggling at the moment. But I do believe with, again, DeFi launching and things like that, we should see a bit more of that order restored. And CPS is there to kind of, fix that problem and help there. So I want to let's pin it there. I think the conversation around this, if you're new listening, it's more around creating that, shedding some light to this atmosphere, and that's been created, and viewing it more as a positive thing. And let's work through what the next 6 months is going to show us. And on that note, the next topic I wanted to talk through, CPS. So the proposal system's launched at the moment. I think there's one more day to get the proposals in before it switches on to a voting period. And we have 8 proposals currently in there. And I have to say, I've actually gone through these proposals, majority of them, and they're great proposals. We got completely unique use cases that people want to create, put through in these proposals. Upgrades to certain apps. We've got a couple of marketing initiatives. I like the Spartan bots in there as well. Believe it or not, I used to follow that Twitter bot, and I thought it was the smartest dude there commenting. Didn't realize it was a bot. So yeah, there's quite a bit into CPS proposal. What are your thoughts, Icongrapher, looking at that?
Yeah, well, I think when CPS initially launched, there were only a couple three proposals, so I was getting a little bit, I don't say nervous, but I was slightly concerned that there weren't more. But it's kind of kind of reminds me of how P-reps were. That once the network launched, there were only I think it was 25 or 30 different P-rep candidates, and it wasn't a super high number for a couple months there, and there was some concern growing that not enough people care about Icon, and of course standard FUD, the price action at the time didn't necessarily help with that, but it's one of those things where not everyone's lined up at the gate ready to go from day one, putting forth the effort it takes to put a polished proposal together. And I think there's some trial and error going on here where people will submit a proposal and then realize, oh, maybe it's not as complete or well thought out as we thought it would be. Or there's people probably watching from the sidelines wanting to see kind of how things play out. So, the number of proposals is growing, not necessarily by the day, but certainly by the week. And so I think we'll see more and more momentum as people get more aware of the system being out there. We're certainly going to try to do work to spread that awareness as well, but also just a sense of how it works, what's been successful, what's getting funded, the best way to craft a proposal, all that other good stuff. So, there's early momentum's a little slower than I would like, but as I remember with the P reps, now we're up to well over 100, and new ones are still popping up every once in a while. So I don't think we'll have any shortage of proposals over the long term. So it's certainly a positive development as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and one real important point may have been lost, and particularly if teams are listening to this podcast, because I do know many people do, and we're very grateful. The CPS fund, obviously, when Icon 2.0 comes out, the inflation is how the fund will grow. But in the interim, the foundation will keep topping up this fund every month. So at the moment, we've got 250,000 ICX. That's ICX, not dollars. ICX in there. That's double, 500 grand right now. Well, close to. But every month, it will get topped up. So, yes, we should be on the side of caution, but at the same time, let's see those projects that are unique, that especially if they have the teams have existing dApps on other chains and they're wanting to bring it onto Icon, let's get in there, let's support them, let's bring them on in the journey. Once we have them on Icon, they may start making new dApps on Icon. We want to encourage this, and there will be more CPS funding. So this is really important to remember, and I think that 250,000 figure that looms on the top right left-hand corner of the CPS page, once you start seeing the proposals come through with the funding amounts, and various want a bit more money than others, it starts becoming daunting. Oh my God, we don't have much left. But that's not the case. The foundation's rewards, monthly rewards, majority of that will go back into the CPS fund. That's what they've communicated. So I expect that to be topped up very soon, and we'll have the new round of proposals. So yeah, just wanted to call that out. I feel I didn't realize that until 2 weeks ago, where I read something and I thought this is a really good call out for everyone. Every iconist should know. So our goal should be to enable these projects. If their plans aren't thorough and detailed, let's ask for that detail so that they can then get these proposals and we can get in there sponsoring them and start seeing them come to the Icon blockchain.
Absolutely.
Great. I feel like I had many Fez rants, apologize, but there were a few points I wanted to get across, and it may not be, I guess some people have been dealing with all sides of it, so I may not be seeing the full picture, and I admit that, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we all want, we want a thriving ecosystem with many options for everyone, and that's all I want as well, so... that's all I have on the news, Iconographer. Any final closing points?
Yeah, I think it was a relatively active week. For some good reasons, and obviously some bad reasons. But we're coming into a point now where, as part of that AMA that we talked about earlier, Ricky Dodds had pointed out that he thought the next 3 to 6 months would be probably the most busy and active of the Icon ecosystem thus far, and based on everything that's lined up and supposed to launch soon, and whatever is unannounced as well, it's certainly shaping up that way. So, I think compared to how things were in 2018 and 2019, and to a certain extent part of 2020, it's getting really, really hard to keep track of everything. A lot of news here, a lot to digest, but it doesn't look like things are slowing down at all. So we'll we'll have to spend even more time doing all the research and talking through things. But that's certainly a good thing in my mind.
I know. Where my day job is slowing down my progress on reporting the Icon news. uh, okay, great. Look, that's all I have as well. I think, as usual, if you like what we're doing, what we're presenting, if there's particular topics you want us to break down, let us know. But subscribe, hit that like button, share this around, and once again, thank you for tuning in.